What is up, all you cool cats and kittens? It is week 7, and this is the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I'm Joe Frick. With me, as always, the one, the only, Dr. Drew Hannis. Drew, heard you've been working on your gritty. I heard we're halfway through the regular season for fantasy football. How are you doing today, my friend?
I have to have a little bitch session quick. I didn't even tell you I was going to do this, but I'm real pissed off about something. So Sean Tucker. We need to have a discussion about Sean Tucker quick.
Well, casual 50-piece in Scott Fishbowl last week.
We got to talk about Sean Tucker. One, I hope you remember during the preseason when I told you I was a Sean Tucker guy.
I mean, you were a Sean Tucker guy last year.
Okay, this is where we're about to go, all right? I've owned him in like every single dynasty league that I've had and been holding him on taxi. But there is like 7 of them where if you go back to like September 13th, it says Drew Hannis dropped Sean Tucker. And my ass didn't get him on waivers in any of those leagues. So I'm very bitter that
Who did?
Yeah. And in that league, it's my fault though, because like I didn't want to spend fab on a guy that I think might be a 1-week guy. But it was like I wanted him back on my team because me and him were together since day one. Like I drafted him in some rookie drafts very, very late. A lot of them I picked him up right after the rookie draft and stashed. I did start him in a league though last week. I know that I brought this up, but like there was a league where it was this desperation. He was my only running back on my bench. Injuries and bye weeks, and I threw him in there. So I got some love out of him, some return for the love that I gave him. But I'm very, very bitter that there's a lot of leagues where I don't have exposure to him when I did have exposure to him for like a long time. And he decides to go off right after I dropped him in some of them too. It sucks.
Yeah, I think I kind of did it to be petty, just to see if I could get him and you couldn't.
If you go on like the dynasty leagues that we're in, you click on his name.
Yeah,
there's a history, and there's one of them has like 4 or 5 ad drops for me. Just over like several weeks, just because I didn't have space, so I dropped him. And then when a guy went on IR, I pick him back up, and then he finally goes off, and I don't have him now, and it's crap. I hate it. And some of the people that got him, I can guarantee I text them, and they'd be like, "Do you know who he was before this week?" And I bet you like half of them, if not all of them, will say that they had no idea.
At Syracuse, he was a very popular guy last year because he played really well. Then he had the medicals that had him drop in the draft, but like he was expected to be like a mid-round pick, like right around like Izzy, where Izzy was going to the Jets. Like it was like, oh, you could see Sean Tucker there.
He had a neck injury, which is the reason he went undrafted. And I called him like during our draft special. I was like, Zach, what is the deal with this guy? Because I like him a lot. I called him Nick Chubb light because I think that he kind of plays like Nick Chubb, and I was all about this dude. And I'm just so bitter that like I lost out on this opportunity to play him in majority of leagues because I would have, like, I threw him in there because I knew that he was going to get some snaps.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting too with like Rachaad White being as inefficient as he was last year, but ends up being what, RB4. Then he's been inefficient this past year, but that running offense looked really good last week.
He's a good player. I believe that, and you're not going to be able to start this dude week over week. That's why I didn't like throw a bunch of fab at him because it is going to be a committee and it's going to be a rough committee.
Yeah.
And he's going to be the odd man out when White comes back. But like the dude's talented, and I think that he should get more respect for the Buccaneers because I think that he's a good player. But
yeah, for sure. No, I hear that. So we've already got some people asking the questions in the chat. So that's great. Get those questions queued up. Drew, in the meantime, before we jump into those questions, put on the lab coat. What do you got for me on injury updates as we look at week 7?
Yeah, we'll just rattle through these because we already got a bunch of questions. And a lot of these are big names. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is back in the concussion protocol. He got a concussion. And I did want to mention that Malik Neighbors never got out of the protocol. Like we discussed last week, it didn't look good. It still doesn't really look good. They're saying that they're optimistic, but he's still only practicing in a red no contact jersey. And today's Thursday. So like, I think that he's going to get to where he needs to be to play on Sunday, but like, it's very concerning that it's taking him as long as it is for him to overcome these concussion symptoms. So
I think the craziest part about it for me, for Neighbors, is the fact that he wasn't contacted whenever he got concussed. It was a sideline throw. He kind of laid out.
And he hit his head on his own.
Yeah, he just hit his head on his own. Like, obviously that doesn't make or break how like your body's going to react to something like that. But when you think concussion, you're thinking, hey, somebody got laid out in the middle of the field. It was like this dirty play, helmet to helmet contact. And it was like, dude, just diving for the ball.
Yeah, they're non-linear injuries though, and it's different for everybody. But like we're kind of seeing that like he might be the type that it's like he's not going to be a quick recovery from concussions. You can't say that for every single one, but it's just like it kind of feels like that's going to be who he is if he does suffer these types of injuries. So it's like
Sure.
something to monitor throughout his career. And I mean, hopefully he doesn't have to deal with that because you don't want anybody to deal with the concussions. But it's worrisome, especially for dynasty owners. Jerome Ford suffered a hamstring injury. I mean, when Nick Chubb coming back, Jerome Ford was going to be a guy that was going to be like committee back moving
Did
forward.
you read that article that he posted this morning on the Players Tribune?
I only read a couple of the quotes that were posted. I didn't have enough time to read through the whole
It
thing.
was really good.
The dude's like one of the best players in the NFL, not just like player, but just like person. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this is the most respect that I'll give. So I kind of wore this for the fact that he did that. I mean, we want him to succeed. We do. I mean, even though he's
For my marriage's sake, yeah, for sure.
yeah, he's the one dude on the Browns that I'll always just like respect no matter what.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hopefully he comes back. I don't feel good about it. It's not a guy that I was rostering at all this season. But I just want him to do well, and I hope that it works out for him. So Jerome Ford, when he does come back from the hammy, it does sound like it's going to be this week. I do think he'll miss. He's going to be a committee back anyways, and he's probably going to be dropped in a lot of rosters. So another hamstring though, Travis Etienne. So this one was interesting. He's probably not going to play this week, and Tank Bigsby is probably the next man up. But if you really look at it, last week, Dearness Johnson was the next man up. But I personally am not going to take too much stock in that because I think it was just because they were down so big that they just had to play Dearness Johnson. They needed a more catching back than Bigsby, which we talked about. He's not going to offer you anything in that. But Tank Bigsby's probably a top 15 play based on matchups until Etienne comes back, in my opinion.
Hot take for you. I still think that Johnson is the guy.
Do you?
That's because of I don't think that the Etienne injury will give more passing work for Bigsby.
I don't think that. I just think that Bigsby's going to get enough run as a rusher that I think that he'll be fine. But he's going to have to score to be a top 15 guy.
I think that just like in a PPR format, I think Johnson, he doesn't have to have the carries, but he'll get the dump offs that Etienne was getting.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it makes Bigsby the bell cow all of a sudden. I think that they just take the Etienne role. Maybe Bigsby gets a couple more carries in the early down, but then Johnson's still going to be the third down guy.
Yeah, so I vibe with that, and I agree with you. I don't really know what's going to happen in that regard. Like I added Johnson in a few leagues just because you don't know, but like I don't think that last week was a true sign of what we're going to expect moving forward. I do think that Bigsby's going to have a bigger role than he had. I think it was just because the Bears were kicking the crap out of him. So we'll see though. But Etienne, he's having a tough season. Like this injury is going to obviously impact him for the next couple of weeks. I also want to point out that Evan Engram, they were really cautious with how they handled his hamstring. I could see him missing a month plus just because of kind of like their philosophy and how they've been handling hamstrings.
And they suck.
Exactly. There's no point in rushing him back. So if you're an ETN owner, that sucks real bad because you're probably going to be without him for a bit.
Yeah.
Chris Olave with another concussion. We can already call him out because they play tomorrow night.
They ruled him out already.
Yeah. Dallas Goedert with a hamstring. He practiced today, so it seems like he might be back this weekend. So we'll see. You can monitor that. But I don't really think that he's a guy that's a guaranteed start for most people, and you should be able to find another option if you do have him. A few more here. Jordan Mason suffered an AC joint sprain, which is actually pretty good because when you go down the way he did, it's either AC joint sprain or it's collarbone. So the fact that it was AC joint sprain is encouraging. He's been practicing with a no contact jersey on as well, but they seem optimistic that he'll probably play this weekend, which is good. But if not, Isaac Rendo's available in a lot of leagues yet. So definitely something that you can, look into if he's going to miss. Tyjae Spears, hamstring, sounds like he's probably going to miss too, but something to monitor throughout the week because I feel like he's been fighting something like this for a few weeks now. Hasn't missed any time, but it's kind of been like he's been in and out of games. So it's going to get to the point where they're just going to sit him down and let him get rest, which I feel like that's kind of where we're at now, but it's something to monitor. And then the last one, I mean, there's been buzz about this for the last few days, but it really hit the hammer within the last hour. You texted me with Rashid Shaheed. He has a meniscus injury. We don't really know what his timetable is going to be until they get inside his knee. I think that they're going in with the hope that it's just going to be a trim, which if it's just a trim, he might just miss a month. But if it's a full meniscus repair, the dude's done for the year. So, get your prayer circles ready for Rashid Shaheed because they're going to get in there in the next few days and they're going to figure out what his outlook looks like for the rest of the season. But because he was having a great year. So hopefully.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he was basically running that entire offense. Him and Kamara were the two guys. Olave was almost like a secondary thought.
Yeah. And if he does need a full meniscus repair, I feel good about him moving forward for Dynasty. So,
that would be an instant buy for me. Like,
absolutely. I have him in majority of leagues. I've been stashing the last couple of years. I've been hitting pretty good on these last few years.
I'm thinking maybe I could trade you Tucker for Shaheed.
I think that you could. I'll just stop there.
Man.
Hopefully it's just a trim. They can get in there and kind of find the damaged tissue in his knee and just kind of cut it out. But if they need to do a full repair and stitch it, he's going to be done. So let's just hope for the best for Shaheed. Moving forward, we'll probably reevaluate that in the next couple of weeks because we'll get some better information about it once they get in there.
Cool.
But yeah, that's all my injuries I got.
All right, good deal. So before we jump into this week's headlines, I do want to get into these questions that we have in the chat. If you do have questions, feel free to jump in. Let's get started. So we're going to start with SJMP. Welcome to the show. This is going to be a two-parter, so he's releasing the roster. So I'm not going to show the rest, but this is it's a standard format, so I'm assuming that this is going to be PPR because that's more standard these days. But I want to package up Purdy and Kittle and sell super high on Kittle because he's on fire. Who should I try to get? My lineup outside of those two is Stroud, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams. And then the rest you got Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk. Bench is Alexander Madison, Rashad White, McLaughlin, Christian Kirk, Tolbert, and Zach Ertz. So if we're packaging up Purdy and Kittle, I think that Purdy, for whatever reason, the fantasy football community never really values him too much. But being that tight end has been such a wasteland this year, I think that Kittle, he's done fairly well this year, can return something decent. As far as players that I would attack, based on your roster, I feel good about your running back room. I think that wide receiver is the place that I would want to kind of tier up on. Somebody that you may be able to get, maybe just for George Kittle straight up, somebody like Cooper Kupp. He's questionable to return this week. I could see being him, especially with Puka Nacua continuing to be out, going to be a target monster. Obviously, you have the injury risk, but I think it's worth it. Somebody that, if you, depending on the record for your team, the other person that I would consider is maybe going after like Nico Collins, depending how long you think he's going to be out for. With the two of them, you may be able to snag someone like Garrett Wilson now that you have, although you probably don't want Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson both on your roster. You could look at somebody like Mike Evans. Those are all players that I would potentially consider.
I'm kind of just looking around based on their scoring so far for the season because I think it's going to be kind of tough for them to package a tight end like that because I feel like everybody knows it's a wasteland. But what about a guy like – what about Brian Thomas Jr.? Because they basically have the same amount of points on the season. He's on an offense that isn't particularly exciting.
I don't think you would need to trade both of those guys to get Brian Thomas.
I don't think that Purdy's going to move the needle to me.
Yeah.
Because so I'm just kind of ruling him out and just looking at Kittle by himself. If you want to give Purdy to just up it a little bit, you can kind of go up a little bit. I just don't think the guys that you're moving up for at receiver really are going to do anything for you. And I agree with you in terms of the running back room. I don't think that needs to be moved at all. I mean,
it would be nice to have like an elite backup there. That's like you have like a third. I always like to have, but you do have like Rashad White, maybe if he can find return to form, but I don't have a lot of confidence there. Madison does nothing for me. You have McLaurin there already, so it's like you're looking for a flex player, really. I don't know. I would still probably go receiver, but yeah, I think I would attack those. I would just float it, given that he's still hurt and no one knows what's going on. Depending on your record, maybe you can try to swing CMC.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Cup would be the guy because I think everybody knows that he's likely to come back this weekend or next. So if you held him this long,
Yeah, that's fair.
maybe what about a guy like Mike Evans? Because I feel
Evans,
like
I could see there, yeah.
Godwin's been popping off, and I just think at some point it's going to reverse where Godwin will still be good, but Mike Evans is going to be the guy that's really putting up big numbers because it always seems to go like that, like one guy will be really hot early and then they'll just kind of switch up at some point. So I think Evans could be a solid buy low candidate. What about even like this might sound ridiculous, but like what about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because like the dude's kind of been underwhelming.
I don't think that somebody that drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to give up on Marvin Harrison Jr.
They might not
be very stubborn.
Yeah. I just don't know if they're in a position to like really say no to trades because like the rosters I have him in, those have been my most underwhelming teams.
Well, probably because you think about it, you took him second, third round at worst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about like Josh Downs? Because he's kind of like up and coming. Too low.
I think you should get something back if you're giving up Downs. I don't think he's proven enough.
I think Pittman might end up on IR. So that's the reason why I'm like,
yeah. I mean, everyone thought that he was last week, and I was like, nope, he's active.
I still think it's going to end up happening.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. I think those are some good options there. Attack the wide receiver room. Could be fun. Let's move on to Chris Bird. Chris, welcome to the show. 2-part trade. Would you trade Chris Godwin and Jordan Mason for Breece Hall, then flip Breece Hall for Tony Pollard and Jaden Reed? I like the first part. I hate the second.
I don't really like when people like trade to just flip. It's like
if I'm getting Breece Hall, that's it. I'm done. I'm not going back.
I feel like I'd kind of right now prefer to just have Chris Godwin. I know that sounds crazy, but like he's like a top 10 overall player. Like even
he's been nasty
compared to the quarterbacks. Like and you're giving up Jordan Mason. Yeah. The other thing too is I kind of feel like Breece Hall, we're gonna get into this shortly, but I think that Breece Hall is going to be the guy that's going to be hurt a little bit from the Adams trade.
See, I don't think so. I think it's going to be Garrett Wilson, and I think that it opens up Breece Hall.
We can do like a bet here because there's this. I just don't see that. We're going to be way off base.
I will bet Sean Tucker.
Okay.
Is that collusion?
I'll just end up with Sean Tucker somehow. I don't know. We'll talk about it more when we get to that section, but there's a reason why I just feel that.
So let's ignore the Breece Hall part. Would you trade Godwin and Mason for Tony Pollard and Jaden Reed? No. I would say no way.
Absolutely not. No.
So if it was me, depending on my wide receiver situation, I would be fine trading Godwin and Mason for Breece Hall if that meant that I still had 3 good receivers and that Breece Hall was going to be one of my 2 starting running backs. Because I still think that Jordan Mason's touchdown dependent, and I think that Christian McCaffrey, like, it seems like maybe he'll be playing. I know that I've said that I don't think he will.
He's going to play. I think he's going to play. I just don't think that you're going to be able to start him because he's going to take too long to ramp up, and I feel like it's going to be fantasy playoffs by the time.
Yeah, I don't know. But I would not trade Godwin and Mason for Pollard to get back Pollard and Reed in the long run. That doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I like Reed a lot. I'll say that. But
I do like Reed a lot. Yeah.
Tony Pollard's not.
Cool. All right, let's keep it moving. Danny Bands, welcome to the show. Bub means Josh Downs. Bub means maybe the only living player in New Orleans that's a receiver this week. You know who's probably going to pop off? Taysom Hill. He's probably going to go crazy.
He's out.
He's out too?
Yeah, he's been out for a couple weeks. Yeah, he's not coming back. He has that chest injury.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, yeah, maybe it is Bub mean season.
Maybe
Michael Thomas comes back from the dead.
I just don't vibe with any Saints player this week. I'll be honest with you.
Tough matchup.
Yeah, we talked about this before the show. Like they're giving up 24.8, no, 27.2 fantasy points to the entire receiver room.
Yeah, I mean Miami also has been good against teams this last stretch of games, but they've also played New England, Tennessee, Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's yeah.
So I think it's more reflective of those matchups.
Yeah, I think I'd go Downs this week, especially because Richardson's most likely to play, and Josh Downs is Richardson's guy.
Yeah, I'm just going to Jay Sean it. I'm Downs all the way. Cool. All right, we got one more, and then we'll get into these headlines here. So this is from Marlon. Marlon, welcome to the show. Hey, should I trade Jamar Chase, Jameer Gibbs, Godwin, and Josh Jacobs for CeeDee Lamb, Saquon Barkley, Devonta Smith, and Ayuk? This is a password trade.
That's why I knew you were going to say that. That's why I literally was just waiting for you to keep talking because I knew you were going to say that.
So Jamar Chase, Jameer Gibbs, Godwin, Jacobs, CeeDee Lamb, Barkley, Smith, Ayuk.
I would not make that trade.
So I like.
You're giving up the number one receiver in fantasy first off and Chase, who has number one upside if they figure it out in Cincy. Gibbs has kind of been underwhelming.
Gibbs has been fine. I just don't think that he's been what people thought he was because he's averaging like 15 or 16 points a game.
Yeah, but he's never going to be a boom guy, really, because Montgomery's too involved. And Jacobs is just kind of whatever. But CeeDee Lamb is struggling. So that owner's trying to get out of CeeDee, clearly. There's something going on in Dallas. Like, they're just not – there's been multiple occasions where it's clear as day that CeeDee's like yelling at Dak on the sideline. It's not good. I like Saquon.
I do like Saquon. It's really Ayuk is the killer for me.
And Devonta Smith. Like, I'm not –
Well, he's just been out because of the injuries and stuff.
He's only missed 1 week due to a concussion. He's just been kind of mid.
Well, yeah, that offense overall has not lived up to the hype of what we thought Philly's offense was going to be.
Yeah. Saquon's the only guy on that side. I like CeeDee a lot.
CeeDee has to figure it out, though, I think.
That's how I feel. But you're still giving up Chase. Chase and CeeDee should almost –
They're pretty close.
Exactly. They should wash. So you're giving out Godwin.
Well, it's Godwin and Gibbs. Is Godwin and Gibbs worth Barkley and say like Smith or Barkley and Ayuk? Probably not. Yeah, I would probably hold Pat.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get like Saquon, trade like, I don't know.
This deal to me is like you're trading the guys that are doing really well right now for guys that might do well in the second half. But like they're not killing it now. So
and
like
my whole thing is that it's like Godwin isn't gonna like go away.
Yeah, because the reason why he's playing so well
back in the slot.
Yes, and he's not really touchdown dependent, and he's getting he's scoring all these points. Like it's a lot of it's receptions. Like, I don't think Godwin's going away, even if he kind of takes a step back and Mike Evans starts to get more. It's just that because they throw the ball so often too. Baker's been good. I just don't think that you're gaining anything out of that deal because it's just big names with CeeDee and Saquon, but Chase and Godwin are better right now, and Gibbs is better right now.
Yeah. No, I think I would hold too. Funny you brought up trade Kittle for Brian Thomas. Jesse Winchester wants to know, would you
That's
trade
literally
Kittle
the trade that I just
would you trade
that's literally the trade I just said to someone else. I think that Kittle for Brian Thomas makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially if you have Bowers, because Bowers is the guy that you should be starting week over week going forward and has been most consistent tight end.
He could very easily end up as tight end 1, given the fact that there's no one else really to get targets there.
Yeah, Bowers is going to be.
He's going to finish top 3.
I think that he has a shot to be number 1 tight end in my opinion.
Yeah,
he's the guy. He's been consistent too. Like he's the only one that you can say that's been in the top 10 probably at least half of the season so far, week to week.
Yeah. All right. So we have not heard from him yet, but Chad's finally made it to the show. What do you think about moving Maserati Marvin Dynasty, sniffing around Amon-Ra St. Brown and Bigsby package, but I'm really torn.
If you're just giving Marvin, you're getting Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean,
yeah.
I like Marv a lot, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone that you can
proven.
Yeah. And I'm not worried about Marv.
No, but it's like, what's his ceiling? I think everybody expected what Malik Neighbors is doing is what they expected Marv to do. And I think people are a little nervous because he hasn't.
It's Kyler, though. Like, I've been really disappointed with how Kyler's played this year, to be honest.
Yeah, you said that last week for sure.
It just doesn't make sense to me. But, I mean, if you're in a win now window, like, Amon-Ra is the one you want now. So,
yeah, no doubt. Cool. All right, so let's talk headlines. So 2 big things kind of happened in this past week, and they were both trades. So we saw Devonta Adams show up at Aaron Rodgers' house. So the man is out of Las Vegas into New York.
That
His
dude
leg
literally
is
had an apartment before he even went.
he magically has healed his leg. Full participant. Expect to see him Sunday night in Pittsburgh. So Drew, we started talking about this a little bit before. What do you think the fantasy impacts are? I'm not really worried about the Raiders. I think that that's just a wasteland, so not worth really talking about that
Yeah,
too much. Bowers, maybe Myers. That's really it. What do you think that this is going to do for the New York Jets offense? Aaron Rodgers, who's been anemic to 300-yard games, Brees Hall.
Yeah. So I kind of already alluded to this. I love the move, obviously, for the Jets from a pure football perspective, obviously. But I love this for their passing game too. To me, Brees Hall's still going to be a top 10 running back, but I think that he's going to take the most hit out of the guys you're starting. Like Alan Lazard, you can obviously just wipe the floor with. He's gone.
Maybe. We'll see what Aaron's got up his sleeve.
There's no way. Like the dude's going to play, but he's not going to be someone you're starting anymore. There's just no way.
I saw somebody tweet out there like waiting for Jordy Nelson to sign.
Yeah, that I was thinking about that, how hilarious that is. Tyler Conklin's gone. So like if you were streaming Tyler Conklin week to week, he's gone. Braylon Allen is still going to be involved, which is part of the reason why I'm still thinking that Brees is probably more impacted than Garrett Wilson. The other reason why I think that it's going to impact Brees the most is that one, the Jets have made it pretty clear that they're not a run game offense. Like they're a passing game offense. They're fourth in the league in passing attempts. Okay. And they're 62nd in receiver separation. The reason why they've been struggling is because they want to throw the ball, but they didn't have the guys that were able to separate because Garrett Wilson was getting tough coverage the last few weeks. We talked about this, the matchups that he was facing. Devontae Adams is an elite separator. So for me, is they're going to drop back. I think that obviously Garrett Wilson's not going to be getting the 15 targets that he got the last 2 weeks, but I still think that he's going to push 10 targets. And I think that they're going to be more efficient targets that are going to be completed more often because he's not going to be facing the type of guys consistently that he was. So I think that both guys are going to be top 15 plays week over week. And I know that you talked about this previously. We talked about the Texans earlier this year. We talked about the Dolphins in previous years, that it doesn't really happen. This is a scenario where I will put my stamp down. I think it's happening. I think that both guys end up as top 15 players. And it's just going to be like you're going to get consistent, solid production from both. It's going to depend on who gets the touchdown week over week about who's going to be a boom guy. And for Brees Hall, the other reason why I think that he's going to take a step back a little bit, all of his production is coming from the passing game. Like if you look at it, his yardage, 54, 62, 54, 4, 23. This week was the first week that he had over 100 yards rushing. It's the first time he had over 70 yards rushing.
The Bills have been pretty leaky against the run too.
Exactly. So like that number is kind of an outlier. It's just not who they are as an offense. He's been averaging 6 or 7 targets per game based on just looking at 6, 8, 5, 5, 4, 6. He's rough around 6 targets a game. And that is still going to happen, in my opinion, but it's going to take a dip. I think that he's going to be closer to like the 3 or 4 targets a game. He's going to have to do a lot with those targets.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Who do you think that opposing defenses will view as the number one?
Adams.
Okay.
And I know that sounds ridiculous, but like, I think everyone knows that Adams and Rodgers are like, they have like a special chemistry on the field. Like this isn't something that like, it's a guy that's really, really good. He's coming to play with a good quarterback. This is like they had elite seasons together in Green Bay. And I don't think it matters that they were apart the last few years. I think he's going to step in on Sunday against us, and the dude is just going to eat. And
back on their bullshit.
The Steelers are going to, whoever the Steelers.
So you think that Joey Porter will cover Adams and not Wilson?
I don't think that the Steelers should shadow with Joey Porter.
But they do.
Yeah, they're going to do it. So for me, this week I shadow Garrett Wilson because he's the guy that's been with the team. But like, if they don't shadow Devontae Adams, he's going to eat.
Because that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that whoever is getting the worst coverage is going to do better.
Yeah, and I think that teams are going to have to not shadow. I think that they're going to have to have their guys pick the side that they feel most comfortable with, and they're going to be moving them around. Like Devontae Adams is going to line up in the slot a bunch too. Like
Yeah.
there's going to be a ton of times on Sunday where we're going to talk about how somehow Landon Roberts ended up on Devontae Adams in the slot. It's going to happen.
That's just the game today. That's just the way that it's played. But
It always happens to us. But like, obviously Wilson's going to take a dip because the last 2 weeks have been insane. Like the last 2 weeks, he went from being like, I don't know what he was at, like maybe wide receiver 30 or 35 or something. I think he's wide receiver 7 now.
Yeah,
like obviously that type of production is going to drop off, but like they are a passing offense and they're both going to do really, really well, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think having a better passing game opens things up for Brees to do better as a runner. I do agree with you that he'll probably see less targets in the air, but I think that he'll have easier running lanes moving forward. I don't think that they both will be a top 15 play just because Aaron Rodgers has only been averaging 230 yards a game. I think that should increase. That should increase. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out.
I think that Rodgers is a top 12 play moving forward.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's hit the second trade, though. So we got Amari Cooper going to the Bills.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to me for a couple of reasons. One, the Browns clearly see their seasons going down the tubes. Right? So you're trading away assets to get more picks.
Yeah.
Not great. For the Bills' perspective, though, so to me, that means they don't have a lot of confidence in Shakir being the only option. It screams to me that they're very concerned about the rest of that room. It also puts a big question mark to me about what happens with Dalton Kincaid moving forward. So what do you think is happening on the Bill side?
Yeah, so let's talk about the bad first. They're a run-first football team. Yeah. Like, it's clear as day, like, they want to run the football. James Cook was out last week, and they still ran the ball a ton. They felt no problems
and Ray Davis looked good.
Yeah, they had no issues with that. Ray Davis is a good player. The only reason why he fell in the draft, in my opinion, is because he was 24 years old. Like, that's the only reason why he was falling in the draft. He's a talented player.
Yeah.
But this is good from a fantasy football perspective. Amari Cooper, the dude low-key looked like he was trying to get out. Like, he was dropping.
He was dropping everything. I watch all the Browns games, so
yeah. And the way he was dropping them, dude, like, it looked like, okay, hot potato. I'm just gonna put this down. Like, the dude, like, he was posting on his Instagram, like, wanting out. Like, the dude made it clear. But the thing for me, Amari Cooper is going to be a stud moving forward. And the reason is Josh Allen loves to throw it deep. Like, that's what he loves to do. And Amari Cooper, his metrics on deep balls are insane. Like, he's first in the league in air yards and deep targets because that's who Amari Cooper is. Like, they were able
he's a very good route runner too.
Yes. So, like, it fits perfectly. I don't think it's going to hurt. I know, like, I agree with the premise that it'll hurt Kincaid and it'll hurt Shakir. I just think that they have roles that aren't going to change, in my opinion. Like, I still think Shakir is going to be a good, solid player, but he's a flex play, and that's what he was. Because he's going to line up the slot. He's going to get a lot of targets still, in my opinion. Kincaid is just kind of like, we never got consistency from him anyways. So I don't think that it's going to change. I just think that he's going to have up and down weeks just like he was.
And I think it's from a dynasty perspective, like Keon Coleman is like a very red flaggy to me. I didn't like the pick going into the year. But this is big. This is really going to hamper him. I don't think Shakir goes anywhere. I don't see a scenario where you're seeing those other pieces move. Like you said, running football team, like, it's pretty much final nail in the coffin for him having any fantasy relevance this season.
Yeah, I think I would still try to buy low on Keon Coleman in Dynasty just because, like, the draft capital, they obviously feel some sort of way about him. We always talked that, like, he's not an elite separator. Like, that's just not who he is. But he kind of has this dog in him that, like, I'd be willing to.
I love the person. I think he's a fantastic person. I want it to work out for him. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think that his stock's going to drop low enough though that I would consider it.
Fair.
Maybe not right away. Like you might have to give it some time. Maybe in the off season.
Kind of like QJ type of thing if you wanted to buy in on that.
Yeah, I think he's a guy that I would still like. I think he's worth the risk when he drops. But he's obviously not anything for this season unless something happens to Cooper or he just takes a out of nowhere type of jump.
For sure. So we've got some questions around trades involving Amari Cooper. So let's hit those real quick right now. So first one is KP. KP, welcome to the show. Should I trade McBride and Amari Cooper for James, Cook, and Palmer? Palmer was just a throw-in as like a filler because they were going to drop someone anyway for the trade.
No. I think that James Cook and Amari Cooper kind of wash, and I think McBride's one of the top tight ends. I wouldn't give both.
Do you have any concern about this turf toe thing that's come up for James Cook?
Nah, not really. I mean, I think that he could have played. I think that the Bills held him out because I feel like they didn't think that they needed him to play. I think you give him a couple weeks, and I think that he bounces back. So I feel good about Cook in terms of his injury. I think the more concern is if they like Ray Davis enough to give him more carries. But right now, James Cook is a top running back. And
would you do Amari Cooper for James Cook 1-for-1? I think I would.
I would too because that's who they are. I think they want to run the ball more than throw it. So I would probably do that. But
yeah, I think adding McBride is probably just a bit rich. Even though he's underperformed, I think it's still too much.
Yeah, because I think that he'll come around. It's really been Kyle. I just don't get what's going on with him. The Call of Duty even come out yet, right?
Next week.
Yeah, so it might get worse.
Yeah. So he said backup tight ends Goddard and he has Kincaid. Goddard obviously had those big weeks. My issue there, though, is that when Philly is healthy, Goddard doesn't get red zone targets. He gets like one a year. It's absurd.
Yeah, if the person that you're trading with is just like, I want to get a tight end back, just throw Goddard in because like I don't actually care enough to even like roster him with.
All right, we got our next Amari Cooper trade: Garrett Wilson for Amari Cooper.
I'll let you go first because I'm interested in what you'll say.
I'm still gonna say no.
Yeah,
I'd rather have Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, I really do believe in Garrett Wilson still.
Amari's too streaky for me, and I feel that Garrett Wilson is going to be like a consistent player. He may not have that boom games, but I think he's going to have a higher floor. And the Jets, like you said, they've been more of a pass-heavy team. I think that continues, so I would probably ride it out. If you don't feel strongly about Wilson or you feel really strongly about Cooper, sure. But, yeah, I think that you're giving up quite a bit, even though, like, Garrett Wilson's taking a little bit of a hit right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hit some more questions before we get into Tinder. So, what are you thinking about this Aaron Jones situation? So, he practiced on Monday, didn't practice today. They're saying he's going to be back tomorrow. They've traded for Akers. What do you think? And I have never been an Akers guy. I don't know why you would spend like any draft capital on a guy that didn't look good in Houston. Come on, man. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I had Akers on my list here. I didn't know if you were going to bring him up during headlines. I think that the trade for Akers tells you a bit about what they think about Aaron Jones. They never really said what his injury is. I think that he has a hip pointer.
Yeah.
I personally thought that the bye week just came at a perfect time and he probably play this week.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something to that. The fact that they traded for Akers, I think that there might be something more to that, and they don't feel comfortable with Ty Chandler by himself. Akers is just because like a 6 is nothing. And he's familiar with their offense because he was on the team last year. So I think that's really all that was. He's just a committee back with Chandler, though. It's just, I think it speaks volumes to why they made the deal. I think that Aaron Jones could miss. I don't think he's going to miss a lot of time, but like he's also older. And there was a lot of concerns going into the year about his ability to stay healthy. So I think it's more of they just wanted to make sure they had the depth. That way, if the time comes where they need it, they're ready.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think that even if he doesn't play, there's not a scenario that I would pick up Akers. I just don't see it. But yeah, it's definitely weird.
I dropped him in a deep dynasty today.
Yeah,
that's enough for info.
All right, here's one for you. We got Turgay here. Achan and Debo for JJ and Singletary. To me, that's an easy yes. JJ's the best in the business. Debo, Achan, like Achan's been getting banged up like crazy. Singletary's serviceable. We're going to talk about him in a little bit, but give me JJ all day.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, make it happen. All right, what do you think I can get for Nico Collins and Isaiah Pacheco looking for production now? Pacheco is going to be a tough sell. I don't know. We haven't heard anything about how his surgery went, right?
I think that he's going to be out 2 months from the surgery. So he had it, 2 weeks ago? So he's probably looking at mid-December, right around playoff time.
Real playoff time.
Yeah. Well, fantasy playoffs, December.
Okay.
Mid-December. Probably looking at like week 16 or 17. For me, I don't think Pacheco has any value because Kareem Hunt looked really good. And I think that when he comes back, it'll be a committee. So
I think somebody like that you could potentially go after for Pacheco on your own. Maybe who?
Jonathan Brooks.
Yeah, but I think this is like I need a win this week kind of move. If you're needing production, you could look at somebody like Wan'Dale Robinson.
I just don't.
I don't think and you're really just going for like, hey, like I don't think that you're going to get the clearance for the concussion in time, and then you sneak in another week.
Let me look up Pacheco quick because of what Chad just wrote in the chat. I don't buy that for a second.
So you could also maybe get like a Darnell Mooney if you think last week was more of an outlier. He was a top 12 wide receiver. I think people would trade for that upside. He wasn't somebody that was heavily drafted. Could shoot there. Maybe Tyler Lockett just as like a fill-in. Khalil Shakir after the trade. People are probably pretty down on him. As far as Nico Collins, I think that he still holds more value because it was just the hamstring. You could look at, say, maybe a James Cook, Devin Achan, someone like Stephon Diggs, perhaps. Maybe James Conner. I don't know, depending on how people are feeling.
The report is 6 to 8 weeks for Pacheco, but he's been out for 3 weeks now already. So we're halfway there on the best case scenario. I still think it's end of November, personally. And when's they already had their bye, so that doesn't matter. I think he's like Thanksgiving time at the earliest. And again, like for Pacheco, it's if Kareem Hunt's playing well, their aspirations are Super Bowl. Why are they going to give him a full workload? I don't think Pacheco has value. Rest of season.
Well, I mean, it's going to be bottom of the barrel, guys. Like, you're just kind of scraping for something. But if you need points, I think Darnell Mooney, Wan'Dale Robinson, Christian Kirk, maybe Tyler Lockett, like players that might be able to do a little bit of something that people aren't going to be holding on to. I don't feel great about those things.
I just wouldn't even make the move. I would just, you
could try though.
Follow your charts and try to stream good matchups and just hope for the best.
Okay. So KP came back with, would you do Amari and McBride for Kyron Williams? You do love you some Kyron Williams.
You know that meme where she's like, that's me right now. I love me some Kyron Williams. I think I would do that. I think I would.
I like it.
Yeah. I think I would.
Yeah, I like it. Cool. Nothing more to be said. Okay. We talked a little about MHJ. Do you feel like he can get to where his value is expected to be this season? Do you temper your expectations? How do you feel like the offense evolves for Arizona over time?
I think he's going to miss this week, first off.
The question was, is it panic time? I'm going to say no. I think that wide receivers that are rookies, like they tend to have like a better second half than they do the first. And really, outside of his first week in this injury week, he hasn't been that bad. He could be a lot better, but I think it's that comparison between him and Neighbors that's making it feel a lot worse than it really is.
Let's look at his matchups, though, here. So Miami, because they play the Chargers this week, but I'm assuming he misses. Yeah. So Miami, I feel good about that. And then they play Chicago, the Jets, and they're on a bye. So I don't think that I don't know if he's startable. Like, you have to start him based on your capital, but like he's probably not startable.
Yeah.
Like if you come back on Tuesday and look at where he scores, he probably wasn't startable based on those matchups. Then they have Seattle, which is again not like I have to look at your chart specifically because I feel like they're not flashy, but they have really good corners, so like they should be playing well.
Who is this?
Seattle, like with
Seattle, they've been good, but they've also had middling matchups. They've been their last 3 games are Carolina, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and they have been creeping up the list. Or no, wait, I'm looking at the wrong team. They played San Francisco, the Giants, and Detroit.
They have really good corners though, so I imagine that like they're either struggling because there's injury concerns or something.
It's primarily running back is the biggest hit that they're taking.
Yeah, Reek Woolen and
Witherspoon
are they're elite. So like there's another bad matchup. Then they have Minnesota. So like they've been bad against receivers, but because it's been a shit ton of garbage time. We talked about that.
Yeah.
So like that's a good matchup. And then they have Seattle again. But the fantasy playoffs are sexy. Let's talk. New England, Carolina, and the Rams. So I like that.
Well, New England, I wouldn't say is a good fantasy matchup.
I'm not worried about that, honestly. Like Christian Gonzalez has been good, but like I don't know. I think that they could scheme ways to get him away from there.
Yeah.
From Gonzalez. And the Panthers and the Rams are elite matchups.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give KP, he's got one more trade idea for this whole Amari situation. So just to recap for us here. So we have had McBride and Amari for James Cook. We have had, let's see, where's the second one here? Amari McBride for Kyron. And now there's Amari Garrett Wilson for Neighbors and Xavier Worthy. I think that that's too much.
Garrett Wilson and Neighbors, kind of a wash. Neighbors.
No.
Hold on. The reason why Neighbors has been booming those 3 weeks, though, is because he's been scoring touchdowns at an elite level that's not sustainable. But from an actual, like, they're not scoring touchdowns. I think that they're almost a wash. Honestly, I do. And then you're adding Amari.
If you didn't have Devontae Adams, I would agree with that. But the fact that he's there now, I can't put them on the same playing field. I still think that you're giving up too much, though. So I would say no. I think the Kyron trade is better.
If you give Neighbors a little bit of a knock, you're still giving a number 1 wide receiver and a good offense. So it's like way lopsided at that point.
Would you trade Brock Bowers for Garrett Wilson? I have Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
I like that.
I like Bowers a lot, but like Garrett Wilson?
Yeah. And then keep Sam Darnold rest of the season, trade Mahomes. I mean, sure. I think that Mahomes' name value will provide a lot more in a trade. Like, no one's going to trade for Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be your starter.
I don't really like either one of them because Sam Darnold's been extremely efficient and has been good in fantasy because he's throwing for multiple touchdowns every game.
You could also just start whoever plays the Jaguars week to week.
That works too. But I do think that you trade for Mahomes, you try to find somebody that's running a little bit. I think you go out and get Drake May. Yeah. I think you go out and pick up one of these like younger guys like and go from there.
Yeah, I vibe with that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Achane and Debo for Kenneth Walker or Kyron Williams. Who do you like better out of the two? I imagine it's Kyron Williams. I would also pick Kyron Williams. I don't hate the trade. I think I would take it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, let's keep going down these lists. We'll swipe real quickly on our Tinders. But I have Adams and Wilson. Would you do Garrett Wilson for Kareem Hunt for Neighbors? Yes. Kareem Hunt means nothing to me.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think that he's nothing, though. I think that he's played really well. But I'd still think that I don't know, actually, now I think about it. Did you see how good Kareem Hunt was last week? I think that he has.
You got Kareem Hunt for free, and you could turn him into young, hot Malik Neighbors.
But Kareem Hunt, if Pacheco doesn't come back early enough, and Kareem Hunt is the sole guy, because I don't care what anybody says about CEH. Like, I added him in Dynasty and stashed him on IR just in case that he's the last man standing, and I still wouldn't even feel comfortable starting him. I think Kareem Hunt could be a league winner if he continues to play well.
Yeah, but I think that he has only a month left, and then you're not going to be able to play him anyway because he'll be in a committee again.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, I don't know.
I mean,
I
maybe
would.
that Neighbors might cool off after missing 2 weeks because he was booming because of unsustainable touchdown production. Like he was scoring week after week after
But
week.
he's also getting like 20 targets a game,
What was his actual average? I'm just curious.
at least 75. Let me see.
I mean, I love Neighbors. I have a ton of his shares. Here he is.
Let's see.
7, 12, 18, 12, and 15. So
he's averaging 13 a game, which is the most in NFL history all time. So to me, that's like, all right, great. Let's do it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, go for it. Frick it. Neighbors is the.
Here's what I will say about this trade. You obviously like Wilson a lot, so I think you would prefer to trade Adams and keep Wilson.
Hold on. I didn't even notice that he had Adams and Wilson. I thought I just skipped right to the Garrett Wilson and Kareem Hunt for Neighbors. Definitely trade one of them to go for it. And I'm just going to say the same thing that I said to you when we were going into fishbowl draft season and you were sitting there with Neighbors on the clock and you're like, I don't know what to do. I said Neighbors is more fun.
That was more fun than Adams, wasn't it?
It might have been, actually. So I would trade. I think that Adams is the better fantasy player this year. I do.
So then, yeah, I would go for it.
But he also has the greatest risk. So if you're a risky guy.
He said he has 3 other running backs as well. Kareem means nothing to me, at least with context.
All right, yeah, bye.
Hoop Bully, I'm so happy for you. All right, so we got one more question. Then we're going to do some Tinders. We'll do some more questions. So keep them coming. But Nino's had his here for a minute. So he's got Cup taken off IR. Who should I drop? Lamar, AK, Monty, B-Rob, Chase Brown, Jamar, Devontae Adams, Deontay, George Pickens, Mooney, Juju, Jordan Love is backup.
Juju.
Jordan Love. Why do you need a backup QB?
Because he's been really, really good.
So?
I'd rather trade him.
I mean, you can. You can.
I would drop Juju. When is Juju starting in that lineup?
Yeah, I mean, fair. But you could trade. If you're going to trade, I would trade a receiver and like Chase Brown and try to upgrade my running back room.
Still, I mean, I wouldn't drop Jordan Love when you could drop Juju. Juju is never getting in that lineup.
Yeah.
Unless all of your players get onto a plane together.
Right. But like, even still, it's like you need to do something with the receivers because you're wasting a lot of points on your bench. Because realistically, you're going to have Adams, Cup, Chase every week. Pickens is never going to see it. Deontay's never going to see it. Mooney's never going to see it. Juju's never going to see it. So it's great that you have that depth, but you have nothing for running backs.
Yeah, you're taking it to the next level. Definitely make trades, but if you're just asking about dropping, it's Juju. It's no questions asked.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you that. I would just roll with the 1 QB, but I get it. Okay. So let's do what we do here. If you still have questions, we will get to them, but we got to hit the content a little bit. So, Drew, let's get to some fantasy football Tinder. So let's shrink it up. Let's get our faces to where we want ourselves to be. So a little bit too much sauce. Now we're looking good. Excellent, great. So if you haven't been with us before, every week we do what's called Fantasy Football Tinder. And what that means is that we are going to do a little bit of something with the swiping of left and right. So you may be familiar if you are on the dating scene, but it looks a little something like this. So as you all know, we have our friend Zach. A lot of people in Pittsburgh are asking, well, is Zach going to actually be the QB1 in Pittsburgh this week? Some questions about him being a wide receiver too. They've shifted him around the lineup. Thinking maybe actually has the potential to really be a franchise guy at QB position. So for all of us that don't really care, don't worry about the ball, just going to hand it off to Najee anyway, probably going to swipe right. We all know the state of the offensive line for the Steelers. Don't think he makes a single snap without just getting completely obliterated. So you may want to swipe left. So popular name that's been on the waiver wire last couple of weeks, Tyrone Tracy, making the most of that Devin Singletary injury. Drew, Do you see Tyrone on the throne moving forward? Has he carved off enough of a role based on his 2 performances in the last 2 weeks?
Yes. This is an easy buy for me, to be honest. I mean, I went through a ton of stats, and Devin Singletary is not going away. We talked about this last week. Heading into the last 2 weeks when Singletary was active or inactive, Devin Singletary was averaging 70% of the snaps to begin with. The rest of the snaps are going to Tyrone Tracy. So it's not like he's coming out of nowhere. The dude had 2 top 20 finishes in back-to-back weeks as a starter. Devin Singletary only had 1.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary is an older back. Like, he's getting to that age where you start to question running backs. He's not going away, but as the season kind
He's
of progresses,
27, man.
yeah, but he's going to be 28. That's the number, right? For running backs.
I think it's 28, 29, yeah.
Yeah, for running backs. They signed him to a 3-year deal. They can get out of it before that, but it's not really like easy.
Sure.
I think that he's a guy that's going to hang around, but Tyrone Tracy's just too good. Like, you can't keep talented players off the field, and that's the reason why I'm buying. I think that it's still going to be kind of a committee, but I'm thinking it's going to be like 50-50, and then like Tracy's just going to start to overtake it over time. I just think that he's too good of a player. It's really, his story is just crazy the way he bounced around in college and ended up at Purdue. Just kind of just off the radar in the draft. Everybody loved him after the draft, but it's just like I felt like no one talked about him at all in the pre-draft process. It was just crazy.
Well, I think part of it's because he's a converted wide receiver too.
Yeah. But he runs like a pure running back. Like,
yeah, and his yards per carry in college was super high in that 1 year that he really leaned into it. I'm going to join in with you real quick. You can keep going with your stats, but I'm also swiping right for a lot of the same reasons that you said.
There's not really much to say other than the fact that like he's just been so impressive and he's a guy that you expect to take over. But I'm trying to find, there was a stat I had here.
Yeah, I don't know if he necessarily takes over because Singletary did get a $16 million contract in the offseason. He's got $9.5 million in guarantees. So I think that they'll both have a role.
Yeah.
But I think that on a team that's struggling to provide offense, having a spark like that, you can't run away from it.
Exactly.
And there's not a lot of options in the receiving room. Tight end, like Theo Johnson hasn't really done a lot yet. So he could really become a weapon on third down.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
The main stat for me was just like he's played like 40% less over the season than Devin Singletary, and he was only 13 yards less in rushing. Like, it's just like he's very efficient and he's just an effective runner, and he's too good to just keep off the field. So it's just like Singletary's not going to go away. But if you have to start one of them, I think I'd prefer to start Tracy because I just think that he has more upside. So he's a buy for me, especially in the passing game. Like,
yeah,
he's a lot more in the passing game.
Yeah, I think the one thing that Singletary does have going, he has like top 5 in elusiveness and like juke rating so far this year. So I think it's a good problem for them to have, and I think that Brian Daboll is a good offensive mind to find ways to get Tracy the ball. So
let me ask you this. While we're on Tracy, because it's something that I've been thinking of. I have a couple dynasties where I own Tracy, but I think that I'm more of in a win now mode.
Okay.
You package Tracy in a pick to get someone who's older, i.e., I considered a trade of Tyrone Tracy and a pick for Derrick Henry.
I don't think it's enough.
For Derrick Henry?
I think Derrick Henry is going to be at least a first. I think it would need to be that late first, and Tracy, I think, would get it done.
Okay, because I was offering a second, and Tracy.
Second would be too low, unless I think
rebuilding team.
Yeah, I don't think it would be enough because it's gonna be a late second in theory. So you probably want that pick. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's stick on the fountain of youth here. So as we know in Carolina, first running back off the board in the draft, Jonathan Brooks. He was designated to return this week. They are saying that he's still week to week as far as like getting him ramped up and all that stuff, despite that designation. Drew, how are you feeling about Brooks getting the looks in Carolina?
I actually want you to go first because I know what your argument is, and I don't want to spoil it because we're not on the same page here.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that I prepared our templates so that we could
Yeah.
both do what we want. So yeah, I'm gonna swipe right. So it's interesting if we think about like the running back situation this year. Chuba Hubbard is a top 5 rushing leader in the league right now. Right? Crazy. If you would have asked me at the beginning of the season, Chuba Hubbard, he was somebody that we said like, hey, good late round dart throw. He's not gonna have a lot of competition. Well, competition is here. What I will say, and something we talked about before the show, I think we have disagreements about what we're doing when we're swiping in this situation.
Yeah.
If I'm in a win now position and I need to fight into the playoffs, we're halfway through the season, you're realistically going to need 7 wins to make it to the dance. If I'm sitting at like 2-4, 1-5, he's somebody that I'm trading and he's not somebody that I'm holding on to. If I'm 5-1, 6-0, I think he is a better lottery ticket than say like Isaiah Pacheco. I think he's a better lottery ticket than like guys that could emerge or come back later. I think that he really does have a lot of upside. They traded for him into the draft. I think that it's going to be a slow burn. I don't think he sees the field for another week or two. He's going to have to earn his role on the offense as well. I don't think they're going to just hand it to him. But they did trade up for him for a reason. I have a lot of faith in Canales, and he can do it all. He can catch passes. He can run. So I would rather have him than say like a Benson who you're waiting for an injury for. I would say like Isaiah Pacheco is kind of like clogging rosters, waiting to see what's going to happen with him. Obviously different because he's in an IR spot, but I do think that Brooks will emerge as a startable player before or like right before fantasy playoffs start. So he's somebody that I'm looking to acquire if I am in kind of like the pole position for playoffs right now.
Okay. I agree with that statement that you're buying low for the playoffs, but I'm still selling Jonathan Brooks. And the reason why I'm selling,
because you're a doctor,
it does have a lot to do with that. So some of the stats I wrote down, you already talked about. Chuba Hubbard's 3rd in the league in rushing yards. He's 3rd in the league in receptions among running backs. Jonathan Brooks only tore his ACL in November. He's not even a full year removed from it. Over the last 10 years, running backs that came back from an ACL injury, and these are stats I got from some site online, so hopefully they're right. They're not mine. Only 20% of running backs who suffered an ACL came back and had similar or more production in the following categories: yards per carry, elusive rating, yards after contact, and yards per touch. Of those 20%, the players that were surveyed only felt that they were at 85% of their pre-injury health. Like they flat out said that like they felt that they were different. They said 85% is where they felt they were. That was the number that most players picked during that survey. Okay. Also, it's not just a physical thing for me. It's the mental aspect of Jonathan Brooks. He's not a normal player coming back from an ACL. He's not a Javonte Williams last year or a Breece Hall. He has no NFL exposure. So for me, I'm selling because of the mental aspect. I think that the Panthers are activating him just so he can get his feet wet in the NFL. I don't think that he's a fantasy producer in 2024. I think that this is to prepare him for 2025 because they don't need to rush him because Chuba Hubbard's been good, like we discussed, but also they're not a competitive team. So for me, I think that this is going to be a full committee with Chuba Hubbard leading it, just so Jonathan Brooks can just kind of gain some experience and, prepare for 2025 because it's not built for him to need to take on enough work for him to be fantasy relevant, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right. It will need to be an outlier. I'm just willing to buy low to see if it happens.
yeah, it's going to depend on price for me, but even then, I acknowledge that it's worth having discussions about buying him. But when I thought about it too, I don't think that even if he even if I acquire him, he's not a guy I think I'm going to put in my lineup.
Sure.
I don't think it's worth giving up any assets for a guy unless it's like something really low, like obviously, but like I don't think that he ever sets foot in my lineup
Sure.
because I don't think that he's ready to be fantasy productive in 2024. I think that this is a 2025 thing, and this is coming from a guy who has 100% ownership in Dynasty. I got him in every single Dynasty league because I like to come out of every rookie draft with at least one wide receiver I feel good about and one running back I feel good about, and he was really the only running back that I liked.
Which is funny because I really like Trey Benson and he's done nothing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like Benson, but I just knew that it took an injury from Connor, and it was like he's going to be a guy that probably is going to be productive. He's probably going to give us 2 weeks where he's just going to be like he could even be a top 15 running back if Connor goes down and you get those 2 weeks. But like, I wasn't really someone that liked him long term. I don't know why. I mean, a lot of people did. Might just be eye test for me. I wasn't really crazy about him like I was Brooks. I thought that Brooks was the best running back in this class, and I thought it was a very, very weak class. So it really wasn't saying much anyways.
Sure.
I felt the best about Brooks, and I was willing to wait for him until 2025.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Sounds good. So like that, we're going to jump over to our only fantasy predictions for the week. Before we jump into how we did in week 6, I do want to hit some more of these questions that we got. So a little over the hour mark. So we're going to try to zoom through these as quick as we can.
Don't worry, my OnlyFantasy will be really fast.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's see. So we got through Nino, who said that he has a lot of depth for Kareem. Someone's trying to trade for Jordan Love. They have some different quarterback options, or they've got some different running back options. I would throw Hunt out there. I think Hunter Hubbard fine for Love. I don't think I would trade Mason or Aaron Jones for him. Drew, anything there?
You acquired Jordan Love, right?
Yeah.
Do any of those running backs get it done?
Maybe.
I don't know if any of them get it done. Maybe Jordan Mason, but
I wouldn't want to trade Mason for Love personally.
Yeah, I just think he's the only one that gets it done. So.
Maybe. Okay. Evans and Tank Dell for AJ Brown. That's a yes for me.
Yeah, it's a yes for me too, because I don't think Tank Dell is relevant outside of Nico Collins' injury. When he comes back from IR, I think that he's welcome to Dumpsville again.
Yeah, and I like AJ Brown over Mike Evans, so with you there.
Yep.
All right. World of Jesus, welcome back. Good to see you again. I have Josh Allen. Would you trade Jaden Daniels and Monty for CMC and Kirk? I would say no. I would trade Josh Allen, keep Jaden Daniels, and Monty has been a horse.
Yeah, I would trade Josh Allen because you definitely don't need both. But I don't think that those are the players I would trade Josh Allen for. I think he needs to do better than that.
I mean, I like the CMC play, but Kirk does nothing for me.
I don't think CMC helps you this year. I don't.
Yeah, but if you're going to swing for it, so you have a quarterback that you're never going to play.
Right. So get someone better, though.
But
right?
like Monty for CMC, like
Monty's good within himself, right? So
sure, yeah.
CMC doesn't do anything for me. I would trade Josh Allen, though, because I think that Jaden Daniels is safer because Josh Allen's not really throwing the ball enough. And I wasn't really impressed with, like, he didn't run. Like, I had a parlay this week where all I needed was Josh Allen over 25 rushing. I didn't get it. Like, he's just not running enough.
Yeah, he did have that QB sneak though after they ran the ball 11 times on 12 plays.
Yeah. It's all about he has to score touchdowns. Like that's really all that's going to keep Josh Allen in the top 10 right now, the way they're running their offense. So I would definitely trade Josh Allen, but where he's at, he's like QB 6 right now, something like that, 6 or 7. I think you can get better than that.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we got Chaka here. This is kind of like a 3-parter, so I'll hit you with the facts as we get them. Would you trade Amari Cooper and Brian Thomas Jr. for Devontae Adams? He also got offered Puka and Jacobs for Amari and Hunt. Team is 3-3, but has a lot of wide receiver depth. The Puka thing is a no for me.
I think Puka's going to be back in a couple weeks.
But I don't think that I would trade Amari for him and Hunt for him and Jacobs.
Especially at 3-3.
Yeah, I wouldn't go for that, even with the depth. Amari Cooper and Brian Thomas for Adams.
I don't know if the gap between Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams is large enough for Brian Thomas to be the split.
Okay.
I want Adams, but I think Brian Thomas Jr. is better than a throw-in to get that gap.
Yeah. With the receiver depth, I could get behind it if he's not going to see your lineup. So it just depends on what those players are. If he's somebody that you're never going to play, I think it's fine.
It doesn't hurt to have the depth, though.
No, it doesn't. All right. So Jaden Daniels and Monty for Malik Neighbors. Smash.
Yeah, because you're only going to start one quarterback. I would see if you could try to make Josh Allen instead of Jaden Daniels, though.
Unless you prefer Josh Allen, but I hear you.
Yeah, I think Jaden Daniels just has a safer floor.
He also has a better offense, which is crazy to say. The only thing that could change that is what happens with Amari Cooper. But I think, like you said, Allen isn't running as much. Daniels is.
Well, the thing with Daniels, too, is that their defense is awful. So he's always in shootouts. So he's a guy that should be in your lineup week to week just because he's always in high-scoring games.
Yeah, cool. But I would definitely take this Neighbors trade. I would even kiss the guy on the mouth if that was what was needed to get this done. Like, I wouldn't care. Okay.
That's what it takes.
So he said this guy. So before we jump into this question, he said he has Jetta's, Neighbors, Cup, Devontae, Scary Terry. Yeah, I would give 2 kisses on the mouth for Jetta's. I would give 1 kiss on the mouth for Neighbors, and I wouldn't do the deal for the other 3.
That's crazy.
McLaurin, I feel like, is not even in this conversation. I could see how you have the older 2 guys, but they've already been hurt. That scares me.
Terry's been really good, though.
Terry has been good for sure.
Yeah. Definitely make a move somewhere, though, because that person does not need all those receivers. They hit on everything.
Yeah.
That's a good draft.
Yeah. Okay. So we got Irving, Cook, Hunt, Ty Chandler, choose 2, just lost ETN. Brother.
Is that James Cook?
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
As long as he plays.
Yeah, I would say Cook and Hunt.
Yeah, I would too. Bucky Irving's interesting, but I think it's Cook and Hunt. But if Cook doesn't play, then Irving.
And then Tampa has Baltimore, which has been stout against the run. So that's why I don't like that matchup. And then Chandler, Minnesota is playing Detroit, who's been pretty good against the run as well. They've been more. Yeah, they're pretty tough. We'll see what happens with the Hutchinson injury, but yeah. I would want to avoid that if I can.
Circle prayers for Hutchinson too, because like obviously
that was nasty.
He's out obviously, but his like I don't even lack of a better word. That thing exploded. Like it was brutal.
It was just
brutal.
Bad. Okay. It looks like we've got one more trade here. So I get Nico Collins, Garrett Wilson, James Cook, Brandon Aubrey. Love when we got the kickers in here. I give Chase Walker McPherson. I already have Tyreek Hill and Jonathan Taylor. I'm 4-2. My opponent I'm trading with is 1-5. Yeah. Yeah, get it done. I see upgrades. Collins over Chase, which is probably a hot take, but once he gets healthy. Wilson over Wilson and Cook over Walker for sure.
Cook can balance Walker by himself when healthy.
Right. So yeah, go stop what you're doing. Go get that trade done.
I feel bad for the opponent because they're just like so down bad.
But I don't get that though. Is it because Cook may not play?
I don't know. They're getting fleeced real bad, and they're trying to get guys on their lineup that are playing. But like,
yeah, man, that's an Old Navy performance fleece right there. That's crazy.
Like, take Wilson out if you're the opponent, and it's still probably fair, but you just have to wait for Nico. But
the kicker thing's really weird to me too. But
yeah,
whatever. Okay. So let's see. Would you trade James Cook and Brian Thomas Jr.? Brian Thomas, nobody likes this guy. They do not
want who he plays for, right? Like,
yeah,
there's nothing excitable about starting a Jacksonville Jaguar.
Cook and Brian Thomas, Ken Walker, and Olave. I take the Cook side.
I kind of like the Walker and Olave side.
You think Olave bounces back now that Shaheed might be out for a while?
I think Olave is the only guy left, and he's just going to be good. because Rattler has shown that he was fine. Like, I don't think they're going to win games, but I think that he'll be able to support Olave.
Yeah.
I kind of like that side better in this scenario. I like
And when I said that, I forgot about the Shaheed injury. So I'm not wrong. I'm just remembering more info. So yeah,
it's
I probably
fresh.
yeah.
It's fresh.
So the Walker Olave side probably does sling it for me. Cool. All right. So we've made it to the summit. Only fantasy. Speaking of the summit, week 6, one Drew Hannis came out the gate and said, Caleb Williams is my guy. And he delivered with a 23 completions, 29 attempts, 226 yards, 4 touchdowns, which is 5.2 if you're looking at from a USD to Euro conversion. He also put it on the ground 4 times for 56 yards. The quarterback one of the week. Drew, how you feeling about this performance?
I feel good. I mean, it's kind of funny because I went on vacation to your neck of the woods this weekend, and I forgot to put him in 2 lineups. So I played Kyler Murray over Caleb Williams. And that, I'm telling you, that was a mistake because I always start my only fantasy guy. That's our rule.
Yeah.
We got to start our only fantasy guy. So my wife and I took a nice trip with our son. We saw Joe on Friday, and I completely forgot to change my lineups.
Happy anniversary, by the way.
Yes, thank you. But I have an opportunity to redeem myself by starting another player.
Don't get there yet. We haven't even talked about my shameful performance. I'm so ashamed that I didn't even put his name on the graphic.
It's Joe.
It's just Joe. Daniel Jones. We got some work to do. What I didn't realize, I like the process. I forgot one major detail.
Neighbors wasn't going to play.
It wasn't the Neighbors part. Cincinnati got like 3 players back on their defensive line and looked like an entirely different defense last week.
I still don't buy that, though.
For what they needed to do for the Giants, no, that was enough to mess up the Giants.
I just think that they ran the ball so effectively that what's the point of having Daniel Jones? I mean, he threw it 41 times, though, which is just wild. But Tyron Tracy was just so effective that, I don't know. It's weird. But it is what it is.
That was week 6. We're back in the lab again. Week 7, Drew Hannis coming off the performance of a lifetime. You said this one was going to be quick. What you got?
I'm heading back across the pond, and I'm going to pick Drake May. And I was back and forth on this. He's playing the Jaguars, so it's that easy. I'm not even going to make it a bigger deal than it has to be. The reason why I was going back and forth on this, though, and I did consider guys like Tony Pollard. I love his matchup. Drake May, I was off on because I don't know if you need to start him this week. There's only 2 teams on bye. The only one that's really fantasy relevant is not having Dak. So if you're concerned about having your quarterback on an awful matchup, that's the only way I see Drake May playing. But I think that he's going to be a top 10, top 5 quarterback this week. So he's safe as my only fantasy, in my opinion. The only thing I guess I could be worried about is just that the Jags are so bad too, and maybe the Pats aren't going to be the type of team that's going to try to run up on them, the score. But Drake May has such a phenomenal matchup that you could start any quarterback against the Jaguars and feel comfortable. So
yeah, it's pretty tough. They're averaging 9.6 points per game allowed more than any other team.
Yeah, it's just unheard of how bad that they've been. So.
And I have to imagine once they get back into America that Peterson's getting fired.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's no doubt about it. But last thing for May, though, is that he's shown last week that he could be fantasy relevant. It was in garbage time.
We love a garbage time king.
That's who he's going to be all season. So, like, I was wrong when we talked about May last week. Like, you dapped him up a ton at the beginning of the season. I didn't realize the Pats defense was going to be this bad. I really should have thought about that more. Drake May's going to be relevant. I just don't think he's going to be a top 10 guy, but he's definitely a streamer. And this is a week where you absolutely should stream him.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like if you're in a 2 QB league or something like that. Or I know I'm in a dynasty league where everybody hoards quarterbacks like crazy. So it's like him or Matt Stafford this week. And it's like, I'm going to roll with May.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So I've dug deep. I've done some research. Here's who I'm going with this week. Dalton Schultz, tight end, Houston Texans. We got Nico out still. He led the team with 8 targets this past week. And if we're looking at matchups, let's see here. Where's my number? Where are you, Houston? I don't see him. Oh, here we go. Green Bay, slightly plus matchup. They're averaging 3.7 points per game allowed more to tight ends than the average team in the last 3 weeks. And that's with Arizona, Los Angeles, and Minnesota. So I think there's a lot of room to grow. Those tight ends aren't really being all that utilized, and they still put up decent points. So I'm expecting a big week for him. I think he finds the end zone. I really thought he was going to have that breakout last week with the first week of Nico being out. Had a really good matchup, but I think he finds pay dirt, which is all that you really need from a tight end perspective. So that's what we're rocking with.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Picture doesn't look like Dalton Schultz.
Really? Because I typed in Dalton Schultz, and that's just what they gave me.
This Dalton Schultz, like those.
That's so weird. So who is that?
But like, I see what you're saying though, because I typed in his name, and I was like, "What the hell?" Like that.
But who is that? Who is that guy?
That's the picture you took, and it says Dalton Schultz, but like,
right?
That doesn't look like Dalton Schultz.
Who is this person, ESPN? Because that is Dalton Schultz.
What's going on? And I was like, wait, am I crazy here for a second? Like, Joe, who is that?
I've got Timu Dalton Schultz. If the pick doesn't work out, it's not my fault. But I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is.
And if you click, wait, hold on. If you click this button where you got the picture, it shows the picture that I showed you as Dalton Schultz. So who is that?
Who is that man? Who is that man? Who is that man? I need to know.
All right, I'm just literally going through.
I'm going to have to do some research because that is hilarious. Because I was like, man, he looks different than I remember. But whatever, like maybe he got a haircut or something. That is funny.
Who are their backup tight ends?
Let's see here. Houston, Texans, tight ends.
It's Brevin Jordan.
Yeah, it's not him. Let's see. They also have Cade Stover. That's Cade Stover.
I think that's Cade Stover.
That is Cade Stover.
All right, so Cade Stover, your only fantasy?
Sure. If Cade Stover gets a touchdown, though.
Hold on here. You did so poorly last week, all right? You can add your Cade Stover plus Dalton Schultz points this week. You can just add them together, and let's see if you beat Drake May.
Hey, man. Hey. If Cade Stover scores a touchdown this week, who was the trade that you said that you want?
I'm betting. I'm going to bet Cade Stover anytime touchdown right now. Hold on. What's his odds?
It's got to be high.
I'm betting him right now.
I love it. Okay. Well, while you do that, I'm going to pull up some questions here. We had a couple more. So
it's going to be so great next week when this hits.
Essentially bad. 3-3 looking for a wide receiver upgrade. League mate is offering Metcalf for Jameson Williams. Is that worth it? Yes. There's nothing more that needs to be said. Jameson Williams is nowhere in the same stratosphere as Metcalf. Go get it done. Geno Smith has been struggling a little bit, but that's a clear upgrade. Don't even worry about it. Metcalf has huge wide receiver one upside. Make that deal.
All right. Over plus 950. Plus $5 on it.
Why didn't you make this bet before we went to dinner last week?
$5 to win 50. So
love that. All right. Breece Hall, DJ Moore for Jefferson and Jordan Mason. Yes.
This one's tough.
Because Jefferson is a clear upgrade to Hall.
I think I say no. And the reason being, we don't know how long Mason is going to be the guy. Like we're speculating on CMC. DJ Moore's not going anywhere. So I think the safer bet is to keep Breece Hall and DJ Moore because we don't know what Jordan Mason is.
I would do it. I said that I'd give 2 mouth kisses to a dude for Jefferson 20.
I know that you're so like I love Jefferson too. I don't know that you need to take that risk though. Like if you have Breece Hall and DJ Moore.
Because it's for the love of the game.
And that's also me thinking that Breece Hall is going to take a step back. I still think he's going to be a top 10 running back, but
yeah, I just think the thing with me is it's like, yeah, like Caleb had the 4 touchdowns last week, but DJ Moore had like nothing to do with it. And it's like there's a lot of going to be boom or bust weeks with DJ Moore. And I feel like Jefferson's safe. Mason for the time being is safe.
Last week was kind of a fluke, though.
Yeah.
DJ Moore had 2 TDs the week before, and he's cleared the guy. I don't know. I
think they're just more willing to spread the ball around. I think they have to find a way to get Rome involved more.
That's fair. To me, it's like, do you think that you would do Breece Hall and DJ Moore just for Jefferson? Because that could potentially be the trade.
No, I wouldn't.
So that's why I'm out on it. Because like Jordan Mason could be like, he's a wild card. He could be a league winner by CMC not playing, but like CMC could come back week 10 and then
yeah. I hear you. Cool. All right, we got 2 more, then we're going to shut it down for the night. Do you think that DeAndre Hopkins will get traded to Kansas City?
No.
I don't think so either. I don't think he fits what they need.
I don't think that the Chiefs really need to worry about acquiring.
It's a good Madden trade, but it doesn't make sense for like he wouldn't be the Rashee Rice role. Like I don't see it.
I just think that everyone's so hyped about KC just acquiring a wide receiver all the time because they're always looking for one. But like Kelsey's going to be fine. Juju was fine, and they basically got him for free. Worthy didn't do much the last couple of weeks, and you still think that you're going to get more out of him. I could see them doing something really dumb, like and just pick up Marquez Valdes-Scantling again, bring him back because he's free now because he got cut. I could see them just doing that.
Yeah,
that's what I think that they do.
Okay. Last question of the night: Pickens or Ayuk?
I mean, I don't know how you could start Pickens this week. I'll be honest with you. Matchup and even if
matchup against the Jets, that's going to be a no. Rest of the season. I think I'd still lean Ayuk.
I do too, because he really started to come back to where he was last couple of weeks. I mean, last week it was kind of a dud, but the week before that, he was very, very good. I think he's going to be up and down because of the nature of their team. But the Steelers' offense isn't. Come on, like we know what the Steelers' offense is. We're Steelers.
Well, I mean, if it depends on if Russ does start, how he looks. But if Justin Fields is only throwing for 150 yards a game,
I still don't. This is a different discussion that we keep having. Everybody's having on Twitter, but like, I don't think that much is going to change. It's just the offense is going to look different.
Sure, but if Russ is throwing for 225 because he's not running for 70 yards every game, then that's good for Pickens.
I just still think it's spread around.
Yeah, but it's still better than the 150 yards that he's getting from Fields.
But those yards could be going to Pat or Calvin Austin.
We'll see. I think I would roll with Ayuk is the bottom line.
Yeah, there's more risk with Pickens. So.
Cool. No, for sure. All right. So one last thing we'll do. Drew, let's let them know where to find us. Got to clear the banner. Otherwise, people won't know that we're on Twitter. We are on Twitter. Follow at AT412FF Show, on YouTube at Around the 412, as well as Twitch. It has been a pleasure chopping it up with y'all for an hour and a half. Got about 60 people tuning in at this time, which is really cool to see. Drew, any closing thoughts for you?
We've been getting a crap ton of questions the last few weeks, which is awesome, but like tweet them to us too. Like we'll respond. I mean, it's usually Joe, honestly, but he'll send me a text, be like, "Hey, what are your thoughts?" And I'll give it. But like, you kind of man the account the most. I gotta help you out more, but just send them along because like we get a bunch of questions. Like people are throwing them in. Like last week, they were throwing them in as we were logging off, and like we didn't like actually get to respond. But like just tweet them to us.
Yeah, for sure. And if you are watching this in a not live scenario, our personal handle, the show handle, all of that is in the comments. Another thing that's in the comments is the link for the Rocket Around the 412 Year 7 GoFundMe. If you have not been in the kind of the sphere of Around the 412, something that started 7 years ago with Tyler and Zach, they wanted to provide a better holiday opportunity for Pittsburgh children. So they are teaming up with the Salvation Army Angel Tree. The goal for me this year, I don't think that those guys are saying it, but I want to sponsor 30 kids. So if you are enjoying the show, if you love children, if you want to make the holidays better for people, click in on that, make it happen. You can find us on Twitter. You can find me on Reddit. I'll be up in them streets as well. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. I'm Joe Frick. That's Drew Hannes. This is the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. Best of luck in week 7, and we'll see you for the week 8 primer. Thanks, y'all.